This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet world, West Alabama. How are we doing today on this 4th of July? I hope you guys are all having a great holiday right now. I hope you guys are enjoying your family, enjoying your friends, enjoying the great freedoms that we have in this country. Enjoy some hot dogs, some ribs, and some fireworks later on this evening. I hope that you're not watching this actually live right now, that you're enjoying the holiday, that you get this maybe tonight on playback or on Friday morning as you restart your work day. But I'm Joe Gaither, and this is the Joe Gaither Show, and we are live here on BamaCentral, the home of Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated. You can always follow me at Joe Gaither 6 on any of your favorite social media machines, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, really all the social medias that there are. I am at Joe Gaither 6. We're going to have a fun show today, or hopefully going to have a fun show today. There's a lot to talk about. I didn't want to leave the day without doing a show. We appreciate everybody who's also subscribing to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or on Amazon. We appreciate you doing that, giving us a little subscribe, rate, and review on any of your favorite podcast platforms. I am doing this much later in the day than I usually do, and that is because of the holiday. I enjoyed myself a little bit today and enjoyed the dog and just hung out around the house. But we wanted to bring you some of the another edition of the Joe Gaither Show because there is a lot to get into. There's a lot of things that happened yesterday after I finished with Blake Byler. If you watch that show, we talked to Blake Byler about the Alabama third basketball assistant coach, and he said, there's no real news quite yet. And lo and behold, news came through. Alabama hired a third assistant coach yesterday, middle of the afternoon, and you can read about it on BamaCentral.com. We also spent time with Blake Byler talking about Alabama's four transferees coming in for this year's basketball program. Blake Byler's been writing profiles, the newcomer breakdowns for the third consecutive year. We encourage you guys to check out those breakdowns, as Blake Byler always makes us a whole lot smarter. You can check that show out on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, or on those podcast platforms. So we're going to talk about Justin Hill today. Justin Hill surprised everybody by committing to the Alabama Crimson Tide yesterday. A lot of people, even myself included, thought he was going to go to Ohio State or commit to Ohio State. He commits to Alabama yesterday at noon. And yeah, Blake Byler wrote about that after our show. I was live doing a show with Miami with our friends at Kane Central. If you want to hear our other topics and our other shows, you can check us out on Kane Central, on Missouri Central, lots of other platforms on the Walsh Writing Network. So Blake Byler wrote about Justin Hill. We'll talk about him just like we've done every single commit so far. We'll also talk just briefly about Peter Notaro, a kicker out of Pennsylvania who has also committed to the Crimson Tide. But that wasn't the only recruiting news. Alabama lost two commitments yesterday. Two guys decommitted within the matter of the hours. Amir Smith and Miles Johnson both decommitting from Alabama, and both the guys were some of the earliest guys in the class of 2025. So we will talk about what that means for those guys decommitting. Is that a huge loss? What's that mean for Kalen DeBoer and the Crimson Tide? We're going to talk about Bryan Adams just briefly. We're going to look at his background and look at what he brings to the Alabama basketball coaching staff. So just very funny that on the morning edition, we recorded yesterday morning, and I asked Blake towards the end, is there any basketball news on the third assistant? He said, no, not yet. We haven't heard of anything. And middle of the day, Alabama basketball hires Bryan Adams and fills out their coaching staff. So we apologize that maybe some of the presentation sounded a little clunky with Bryan Adams being hired later in the day. We'll talk about him as well. Alabama self-reports 11 minor violations. Self-reports 11 minor violations to the NCAA yesterday, and so we will talk about that as well. We're also going to take just a small little bit to talk about a conversation that I heard on a radio station about, oh my gosh, is Alabama taking too many out-of-state players? If 6 of the 21 commits are from California, and okay, you don't have enough Alabama guys, you don't have enough guys in the South, you have nobody committed to the Crimson Tide from Florida. You have nobody committed to the Crimson Tide from Louisiana and from Tennessee. Does that mean anything? You've only got, 5 commitments now after Miles Johnson decommitted. 5 commitments in the state of Alabama. You got one guy from the state of Mississippi. And, okay, are you really worried? You got 3 guys in Georgia. We'll talk about that as well. But before we get going, I want to talk about my friend Derek Daniel. Derek Daniel has been a great friend of mine for a long, long time. He gave me a chance to work in insurance just a little bit of time. I wasn't that great at it, but he is very, very good at it. You can check him out, Derek Daniel State Farm, right over there on Highway 69 South. If you're driving through Tuscaloosa, right up there, it's past Tiger Rock, 4604 Highway 69 in Northport, Alabama. 35473 is his new location. He moved from McFarland Boulevard right next to First Federal Bank to this new location, 4604 Highway 69 South in Northport, Alabama. And look, insurance is not always fun. It's not fun. It's not fun for me. It's not fun for you. I get it. But you want somebody who knows what they're doing. You want somebody who's going to fight for you and want somebody who's really going to be available at any time of day. You can call Derek Daniel. Get yourself a quote on home, life, auto insurance at 205-758-3391. He doesn't just do home, life, and auto insurance. You need renter's insurance. It's going to be renter season soon, man. If you're moving into Tuscaloosa for the school year, or if you're moving from apartment to a different apartment, you're going to want to have renter's insurance, and Derek Daniel can take care of that. 205-758-3391. Derek Daniel's going to put up with all the hassle for you and really be able to give you a quick quote if you're wanting to relook at your auto insurance, if your rates are going a little too high for you, if you need some life insurance. Look, the best thing that you can do for your family is get life insurance. I know it's not always fun to talk about, but Derek Daniel can handle all of that at his State Farm location. 205-758-3391. We really appreciate Derek Daniel jumping on board as we get going the second year of the program. So we appreciate him sponsoring the program, and we'll tell you more about him as we continue to go on the program in the coming days. So let's get into Justin Hill. He commits to Alabama yesterday, and he is a hoss. 6'3", 220 pounds, out of Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, Winton Woods High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. And yeah, everyone thought yesterday at noon he was going to commit to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah, let's make that nice and big so everybody can see. If you're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter, you can check out the highlights with us from Huddle. If you're listening to us, we're just going to describe it to you. He is going to be an edge rusher. He's going to be a Wolf prospect, so Alabama gets its second Wolf of the cycle, following along with follow along with Dawson Merritt. Yes, Dawson Merritt out of Kansas. And we can see him for Winton Woods High School really doing a lot of different things. He's playing stand-up outside linebacker. He's getting moved to the inside to rush through the middle, rush through the A-gap. And this dude is a pretty nice little athlete. And once again, Alabama getting a very athletic prospect. I was very surprised. I thought that he was going to go to Ohio State. One big aspect of his recruitment that he kind of came out with yesterday and said, it's not about NIL. Ohio State offered more and kept offering more and kept offering more. But I felt like, okay, Alabama wanted me for me. Alabama wanted me for what I can do, for my abilities, and I'm going to fit in well at Alabama. Now, look, it's a long way away until December. And that's part of the conversation that we're going to be having about kind of the recruiting tactics of Courtney Morgan, Kalen DeBoer, and the current staff. I think they're on fire. I think they're doing an amazing job. Justin Hill, 4-star outside linebacker, edge prospect, Wolf here in the Alabama scheme. He had 36 tackles last season, 16 tackles for a loss, 13 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. But you're seeing him a lot in the backfield, creating a lot of havoc. And what a great athlete. I don't know if we've already shown the clip of him. He basically gets kind of run inside on. He's holding the edge, and they're running into the C gap. He turns and chases down the running back from 40, 50 yards. This man's motor is very, very high and very disruptive. You're going to watch and you're going to check it out on this tape. where he's talking, where he plays special teams as well. And so you see a guy who's wanting to do really a lot of things for his football team. He's getting in the backfield. He's very athletic. Now you want, these pass rushing moves to be refined. And obviously, just like we've talked about with a lot of these prospects, like we talked about with Caleb Edwards, the tight end, he is very clearly the baddest man on the field at Winton Woods High School. He's very clearly the baddest man on the field in a lot of these clips, and that's not always going to be the case when it comes to college football. So it's going to take some time to translate, but you see him here playing with heavy hands, striking the blocker, the tackle. He's striking the blocker with his hands and really forcing him back. There again, the tackle had no chance. He's pushing him down, getting into the quarterback's face, and knocking down the pass before it gets to its intended target. He's just got a high motor. A really, really high motor, and it seems to be a sure tackler. Now, again, this is highlight film. It's not always okay. You don't see as much of the negatives on his huddle tape because, he's sending this huddle tape out to get recruited by a lot of high-level universities. He chose Alabama over USC, over Ohio State specifically. Ohio State really came in second, is what all the reports say. Ohio State, Southern California, and Oregon were kind of the runners-up for Justin Hill. As a sophomore, still a really great season. 42 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks, and an interception. He's got an 80-yard interception return for a touchdown on his resume. Gabe Brooks basically gives him a lot of credit for the 24/7 sports scouting analyst. Says he gained ample reps at 2-point wide 9 alignment that revealed encouraging dip and bend flexibility and arc running juice. Also flashed occasional heavy inside hands to get larger blockers off their heels. He excels in chase down situations thanks to closing speed. For the same reason, capable of hustling his way back into plays. And you see this a bunch of different times on this film. Sometimes he's out of position, but okay, he recalibrates and gets back after it. Here he goes chasing down a quarterback, running out of the pocket. So I think this is another really, really good get for Alabama. And it takes Alabama now up to 21 total commits. Now, if you look at 24/7 Sports, it says that Alabama's at 20, but they haven't really registered Peter Notaro, the kicker, who committed to Alabama yesterday. So you're at 21 total commits, and you're still at the number 2 overall recruiting class. And okay, you lost 2 guys yesterday in the recruiting class, and we'll talk about them in just a little bit. But you're at 21. You've got room for probably 27, 26, 27 is probably going to be your max. You don't want to overflow the recruiting class. But goodness gracious, we talked about it with Mason Woods on the Tuesday program, that this Alabama coaching staff has started in January, late to the cycle, and in 6-7 months has built the number 2 overall recruiting class in the country. It's got Justin Hill, spurns his hometown or home state school, Ohio State. And granted, we still have a long way to go till December. So we got to see if these commitments do hold until December. But for a prospect announcing a commitment now, it's not too late to decommit. No, not at all. But it's getting to the point where, okay, the tea leaves are tea leaving. The smoke is smoking. You can, not take it to the bank and lock it in the stone cold lead pipe lock, but you can pretty much decide that Justin Hill, if he's not at Alabama, there's going to be some things that happen. There's going to be, he might end up at Ohio State, but for now, Alabama takes a huge, huge step forward in his recruitment and to get his commitment. Big get for Alabama. We're going to keep letting this highlight tape roll while we turn to Peter Notaro. Peter Notaro is a kicker out of Pennsylvania, and he's considered by Jamie Cole, who basically is the who's who for scouting for specialists. He's considered the number 4 kicker in the 2025 class. And you think, oh, I'm not going to get hyped up about a kicker. And you're right. I'm not going to get hyped up about a kicker. But you look at the landscape of Alabama's recruiting, Alabama's position room with Graham Nicholson transferring in as last year's Lou Groza Award winner. Great. You're set with Graham Nicholson this year. But really, when Graham Nicholson moves on and he only has 1 year left to go, what do you know about Connor Talty, Kalen DeBoer? only saw him during the spring. I mean, obviously, he saw him much closer than I did at Alabama practice, but you have to get a kicker in this class. You have to get a kicker in this class to either push Connor Talty or to overtake Connor Talty. Basically, this is a position of need, and is it a glamour position? No, it's not. I think that a lot of people, obviously, Alabama had its massive struggles at kicker until Will Reichert got into the program, and thank the Lord for Will Reichert and his consistency really easing a lot of Alabama fans' anxieties when the kicker came out there. But Will Reichert's gone, and you got to keep checking on. You got to keep preparing for the future. Graham Nicholson going to very, very likely, unless something weird happens, going to be taking over the kicking duties for the Crimson Tide this season. And then after he's gone, it's just Connor Talty on the roster. So you need to get a freshman, an incoming freshman for next season, and that'll be Peter Notaro out of Pennsylvania. He reported that he got a scholarship offer middle of June, late June, from Jay Nunez, the Alabama's new special teams coordinator. And yesterday, Peter Notaro taking to social media to announce his commitment to the Crimson Tide. So great. You add 2 guys yesterday. The Alabama Crimson Tide adds 2 guys, but you also lost 2 guys as well. You look at the recruiting class and you look at what happened. Zamir Smith was the first one to decommit from the Crimson Tide yesterday. Zamir Smith, he's listed as an athlete on a lot of the recruiting services, but he's going to probably be playing cornerback next season at the college level. He's probably going to be a college defensive back, and he was going to be coming to Tuscaloosa as a cornerback. He was really Kalen DeBoer's first commitment in the class. I mean, you had Anthony Turbo Rogers and you had Miles Johnson both committed as well, and Miles Johnson following Zamir Smith in his decommitment. But you had Miles Johnson and you had Anthony Turbo Rogers who were committed to Nick Saban. Kalen DeBoer's first real commit was Zamir Smith, a young man out of Maryland, and nice little two-way player. But I think there was a little bit of an expectation that Zamir Smith was going to be a little bit of a project-type player. And so he decommits, and you see the Twitter buzzards going everywhere. You see everybody, oh my gosh, Alabama is losing their grip or this and that and the other. I don't think that's what it is at all. About an hour later, Miles Johnson also takes to social media. Linebacker out of Bruton, Alabama, 4-star player who missed his junior year with a knee injury. And so, look, we hope that he has a great senior season and continues, on his path to college football. Just because I like the local guys, if you're in the state of Alabama, I'm pulling for you. Basically, I don't have a favorite high school team or anything like that. I'm pulling for all the in-state guys. But Miles Johnson decommits. And you're hearing reports that, okay, the coaching staff wasn't really keeping in great touch with Miles Johnson, and probably that was by design. I'm not going to say that either of these guys were pushed out of the recruiting class. No, because I think that's not conducive. I don't think that's very positive, and I don't think that is really what actually happened. But, you go down to the very bottom line. The bottom line is both these guys are decommitting, and it opens up more spots. If you had both these guys in the class right now, you'd be at 23 players in the class, and you'd only be looking at about 3 or 4 spots left. Really 3. I think that you're probably going to end up with 26 or 27 players in the entire recruiting class. And look, I do think that Zamir Smith and I do think that Miles Johnson will be quality players for their future colleges. There's other big fish in this 2025 pond. Oof. There's a lot of really, really big fish still left to go in this 2025 pond. And you want to keep your lines in the water on all these guys. We've been talking about them for the last several weeks. Caleb Cunningham, top receiver out of Mississippi. Akelin Deer, A.K. Deer, top running back out of Mississippi. Justice Terry, top defensive lineman out of Georgia. Ty Haywood, offensive lineman out of Texas. Like, there's a lot of really, really talented players that are still out there, and the spots are starting to get really tight. I think Alabama's going to end up with 26 or 27 players in the class of 2025. And so, okay, you wish the young men well. You wish Zamir Smith and Miles Johnson well. But I don't think if you're an Alabama fan that you should be crying too much or getting too upset. Oh my gosh, is something happening in the program? Is something happening in the recruiting department? Is bad thing, bad thing? No, I don't think that's what's going on. And if you're not an Alabama fan, if you're an Alabama hater, if you're a Tennessee fan, Georgia fan, whatever the case may be, if you are pulling for another college football team, first, thanks for watching. But secondly, I don't think this is really evidence or really, I don't think it's evidence that something bad is going on in the recruiting department. Oh, Alabama having recruits jump ship, this, that, and the other. No, I don't think that's what it is at all. I think there is, at least for Miles Johnson's case, who really hasn't been communicated with that much since spring practice, you start to say, okay, maybe I'm not a priority for this new staff. And everybody wants to be a priority. Go look at your husband, your wife. Go look at your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You want to be a priority to that person. You want to be a priority at your work. If your boss is not calling you that much and not checking in with you that much, maybe you start to question your value. And I think that maybe that's a little bit by design by the Alabama coaching staff. But at the end of the day, Miles Johnson decommits and says, okay, I'm going to go where I'm really valued, and great for him. You want that for all the players. I want every high school player to go find their right fit and really excel at the college level. So you gain Justice Hill, big time defensive end, Wolf prospect, 6'3", 220 pounds. You gain Peter Notaro, kicker out of Pennsylvania, who's allegedly got a pretty nice little kickoff, averaging 58, 59 yards per kickoff last season. Didn't really take a whole lot of kicks, and that's typical of the high school level. I read that he was 10 out of 11 on extra points, and I read that he was 3 out of 5 on field goals. He's got a 47-yard field goal and a 43-yard field goal on his huddle tape. So you see him, okay, we can convert from the deeper ranges, and the young man is a capable kickoff artist. And if Jamie Cole has him listed as the 4th best kicker in the country, look, Jamie Cole knows specialists better than anyone in the country, and this is what he does, basically grading and rating punters and kickers and long snappers. That's his department. Much more so than 24/7 Sports and On3 and Rivals and ESPN. Those guys do a great job with positional players, offense and defensive positional players, but they don't do as good a job with the specialist. And look, we know that that's not as glamour of a position. So Jamie Cole listing him as the number 4 overall kicker in the class, and I think that Alabama, you get your kicker, you get your punter. I mean, James Burnup's going to be moving on. Graham Nicholson's going to be moving on. You got to reload behind those guys and get them prepared for get prepared for the coming seasons. All right, so there you go. You've got 2 in, 2 out yesterday. Why don't we talk about a conversation that I heard? And we appreciate it. Look, I love you, Barry Sanderson, on Inside the Locker Room from Tide 109. But Barry Sanderson yesterday going out on his program, and of course, you have to have things to talk about. Definitely. I understand that. We do that each and every day. You try to come up with things to talk about. You try to come up with takes. You try to come up with conversation points. And if you've got a comment on this conversation point or any point of the show, you can always comment on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Joe Gaither 6. We appreciate everybody who tunes in and joins us. I see several people watching us live, even on 4th of July. So thank you so much for spending your 4th of July with me. But Barry Sanderson goes out there, and I'm only naming him because I feel like I'd be a coward if I didn't name where I heard this take. Goes out there and says, okay, I don't know if we should be getting that excited about this recruiting class. I don't know if we should be getting that excited because a lot of these guys, and specifically the 6 California players, are West Coast guys. And look, I've never been to California. It's a long way away. The furthest west I've ever been is the Grand Canyon. It's a long way away. And essentially his hypothesis or his statement was, yes, I know a lot of the coaching staff did come from the West Coast, and so they've already got relationships with these guys. Great. But with the transfer portal, it's going to make it very difficult to keep these players. And okay, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. The transfer portal, you've seen it each and every year. Alabama's had 15 to 23 players basically year in and year out since the advent of the transfer portal go into the portal during the winter or the spring windows, right? You've lost 15 to 20 players, which is basically the equivalent of an entire recruiting class each and every season. And so, yeah, the transfer portal has hurt Alabama. But I think that my main point is that you got to get them in. You got to get them in at first. You got to bring them to campus first as freshmen or out of the transfer portal. But you got to bring them in. And look, this is Kalen DeBoer's first chance to bring them in. The class of 2025 is coming up next. They're all signing in December. A few maybe will sign in February, but the December signing date has replaced basically the February signing date. So this is DeBoer, and this is Courtney Morgan, and this is Kane Woolmack. This is their first opportunity. Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard, this is their first opportunity to sign players. And the first thing you do before you sign them is you commit them. They get commitments. And so, look, what else would you be getting excited about? It seems every single year, Alabama starts off slow in the recruiting department, and then by May, June, July, boom, the ball is just rolling downhill at an unstoppable rate. And it seems like the path and the formula is still been the same under Kalen DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, and the entire staff. And so, yeah, I recognize that you've got 6 players in the state of California, and 5 of those 6 players are top 10 players in the state. You got Chuck McDonald. You've got Abdul Sanders is not quite up to that level, and same with Alex Asparov, the punter. But you keep going. You got Abdul Sanders. You've got Jackson Lloyd, Caleb Edwards 2 days ago, Chuck McDonald. Like, you've got a loaded class out of these California guys. Dijon Lee, obviously being the main highlight, the cornerback, the 6'3", 6'4" cornerback. And so, don't you just want to take the best players that you have relationships with? I understand. Look, and I'm right there with you. I'd love it if you could fill a recruiting class with 25 quality players from the state of Alabama. But that's just not really the way recruiting works. Not been the way that recruiting works under Nick Saban, and it's not going to be the way that recruiting works for a national level program. Ohio State, of course, they'd love to have all their recruits coming from the state of Ohio, but they're not going to pass up on California kids, on Oregon kids, on Georgia and Tennessee and Florida kids just because. I mean, look, Ohio State has the number 1 player in the state of Alabama committed in Naeem Alford, and maybe Naeem Alford flips to Alabama. I still think that's going to be unlikely or going to be very difficult to do, but these top-level programs, Texas, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia, they're not passing up players just because, you live far away. You live really far away. It's going to be tough for us to really check in on you through your high school season. It's going to be tough to, really keep you in Tuscaloosa if you're getting homesick. Look, everyone deals with homesickness. It's part of going to college. I was homesick for different times. It's just part of growing up, and it's part of being in college. So for Kalen DeBoer, for this coaching staff, yeah, you look at 6 prospects in the state of California, but you look at it, you've got 5 commitments from the state of Alabama. And Micah DeBose and Anthony Turbo Rogers and Mal Waldrop. You've got 5 commitments in the state of Alabama. You got 3 commitments in the state of Georgia, and Luke Metz and Jaden Harmon and Duke Johnson as well. So boom, you're up to 8 commitments right here in Alabama and Georgia, and then you flip it over to the defensive lineman in Mississippi, London Simmons. So, all right, 9 of your 21 commits are right here from Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. And then you look at who all's on the hook. We talked about lines in the water. Caleb Cunningham, Mississippi. A.K. Deere, Mississippi. Justice Terry, Georgia. You could be up to 12 out of your 24 commits from right here in the South. People talk about, Kalen DeBoer can't recruit the South. Kalen DeBoer is going to struggle when he comes to the South. Well, I think there's a small legitimacy to that just based on time, but I don't think he's going to be struggling for the class of 2026. So, all right, you accept where you are. You assess, hey, we might be a little bit behind on the class of 2025. We might be. You are. You were in January when you came in. You were behind on the class of 2025. You had 2 commits. You had Anthony Turbo Rogers and Miles Johnson when you sat here. So you were behind. And say, okay, we're behind. What's the best way to make the best out of all these situations? Well, we've got a lot of contacts in California. We were in on Dijon Lee. We were in on Caleb Edwards. We were in on Jackson Lloyd when we were running the Washington program. We think they're really quality players. We think that they're good enough to play Power 5 football. Well, let's go ahead and see if they want to come to Alabama. And boom, they do. So, look, you look at everybody who's committed, 21 total commits. 6 in California, 5 in Alabama, 3 in Georgia, 2 in Pennsylvania now with Michael Carroll, and now Peter Notaro, the kicker. And the rest of it's just one player from one in Ohio, one in Texas, one in Kansas, one in Mississippi, and Latia Brooks, one player in New Jersey. What's the problem? It looks just like every other recruiting class that Nick Saban's ever had. And so I think that there's a little bit of a want to say, okay, pump the brakes. And yeah, you should pump the brakes. We don't know if we got 21 commits right now. Will all 21 of them end up signing with Alabama in December? I have no idea. I think a great percentage of them will be, but will they all be, signing the dotted line, enrolling early in Tuscaloosa in January? That's still wait to be seen. But as we said, a commitment comes before the signing. This is just part of the process. And you want to say, oh, don't get excited. They might all transfer out. Sure, they might all transfer out, but they won't. No, I mean, it's pretty unlikely. Some will, sure. It's part of what the transfer portal is. Part of having the transfer portal as a part of college athletics, and I do think that that's an area that the NCAA could do a better job at policing or really enforcing. Let's ramp up the rules a little bit to stop the players transferring as much. I do love player freedom, absolutely, but if you were to control the transfer portal, you will control the tampering that happens each and every season. Hey, jump in the transfer portal, we'll give you $20,000 in NIL. Hey, jump in the transfer portal, we'll promise you jersey number 5. Hey, jump in the transfer portal, we'll promise you a brand new, Mercedes-Benz. That will stop if you change the rules around the transfer portal. And I think that is something that should stop. I think that tampering is a really dirty game, especially when there's not multiple year contracts like there is in the NFL. I do love player freedom. I love it. And I love NIL. Oh, man, you and I might disagree on NIL, but I love it. Pay these high schoolers. Give these guys as freshmen lots of money. Give these guys as sophomores, juniors, and seniors even more money. But control the transfer portal a little bit more, and you'll control the tampering. But you're going to have some of these guys go in the portal. I'm not going to name any of these guys, any of these 21 guys, because I don't want to put that juju out there. I wouldn't do that for any university. But undoubtedly, inevitably, someone will transfer. Is that any reason to be less excited about these players? No, because, look, think back to last year. We'll just use a previous example. Julian Sayin wins Elite 11. Right? Wins Elite 11 out there. California kid. Oh, no, Nick Saban, are you recruiting too many California kids? Julian Sayin, California guy, he commits to Alabama. He signs with Alabama. He early enrolls at Alabama. And then Nick Saban retires. Okay, Nick Saban retires. He hits the transfer portal. He uses the 30-day window, and he ends up at Ohio State. Were we any less excited about Julian Sayin? Was there any reason to be any less excited about Julian Sayin? Did you see Nick Saban retiring? Oh, sure. Certainly some of you in your circle said, maybe Nick Saban, maybe it's the last one. But look, when Nick Saban retired, people were going to transfer out. This is just part of college football, and I still think that you should be excited about the direction that recruiting has gone under Courtney Morgan, under Caleb Nabor, under Kane Womack, Jamarcus Shepard, and Nick Sheridan. I think that the staff has really, really embraced the program, embraced the pillars of the program that were already put in place under Nick Saban, but have taken it and put their own personal spin on things. The Cold Summer, you can read about Cold Summer on our friend's Tide Illustrated's page. Like, they have taken everything and kind of personalized it and really refreshed things. So, yeah, I do think you can be excited about the recruiting direction because, yeah, you came here in January. You were behind the 8 ball. You only had 2 commits. You didn't have relationships with these players. And you're sitting here July 4th with the number 2 overall recruiting class by most recruiting services and with guys that could take you into the number 1 overall recruiting class if things break your way over the next several weeks and months. So I think recruiting is going very well. And I think that despite, you do have 6 players from the state of California, I think the staff just made do with what they had. They said, okay, we've got this ingredient, that ingredient, lots of connections in California. Let's continue to leverage those connections in California while we establish connections here in the South and while we get to know the high school coaches and the high school programs in the state of Alabama and the state of Florida and the state of Georgia and Mississippi and even Tennessee as well. And so give it more time. Guys are just making the best, making chicken salad out of chicken bleep. Really, look, you come in the middle of January with only 2 commits into a not foreign, but into a place you're not familiar with. And you end up with a number 2 overall recruiting class. I think the bottom line is you're doing pretty daggum good. We're going to talk about two more things before we close out the program. We're going to talk about Brian Adams, his hiring. Alabama basketball has its now full complement of coaches, and we're going to talk about Alabama's 11 minor violations that they submitted to the NCAA yesterday. Before I do that, I do want to circle back and tell you about Derek Daniel. Derek Daniel, State Farm Insurance. You can call him today at 205-758-3391 and check out his location, 4604 Highway 69 in Northport, Alabama. He's moved from his McFarland location. I think he did that about a year ago now. Moved from his McFarland location. He was by First Federal Bank, but now he is up 69 South, just past Tiger Rock. And I want you to call him today. Well, not today. He's off. I want you to call him soon and get your home, life, and auto insurance quotes from him and his great staff. He can get you, call them at 205-758-3391. They can run a new quote on your car insurance and see if they can save you some money and give you better coverage. We're going to keep this moving by first saying hello to my friend James Ludeman, who's found us on Facebook. Happy 4th of July to you as well, James. I hope you and your family are doing well. Be mindful of your fingers and toes tonight if you are setting off fireworks. I'm pretty sure that you're a fireworks guy, James, and that's great. Just be safe with all your family and enjoy it with your family. I know that you and the young ones are probably having a big time celebrating the 4th of July. Let's talk about Brian Adams. Brian Adams, not summer of 69. It was the summer of, all right, not summer of 69. Brian Adams is an NBA coach, or was, as of yesterday, an NBA coach who specializes in defense. Whoo boy. I know that sends shivers down your Alabama basketball spine, considering the up and down nature of the Alabama defense under Nate Oates. You've had years where the Alabama defense has been top 3 in the country, and you were the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, we're bounced out in the Sweet 16. But you've also had years where, oh my gosh, you were barely top 100 in the country. And so Nate Oates had an open assistant position. Austin Claunch, we wish him well at UTSA. Austin Claunch takes the head coaching job at UTSA, and essentially this position has been vacant all summer long. It's really been vacant since the NCAA tournament. Yeah, Austin Claunch, thank you so much. He did stay on the staff and stayed. He saw it through. He saw the entire tournament run through. So they were never missing an assistant during actual play. But he moves on right after the NCAA tournament because he's got to get a lot of work to reestablish UTSA. And you've gone the whole summer basically without the third assistant. I asked Blake Byler yesterday, and unfortunately, I didn't want to make him look bad, and it wasn't intentional. I asked him about the third assistant coach. He says, "Oh, we don't know quite yet." And I hit end on the recording, and an hour or two later, you saw Brian Adams is announced as Alabama's third assistant coach. So the staff is set. Ryan Pannone to work and really draw up plays on the offensive side of the ball. You've got Preston Murphy to basically do recruiting and player development, and really a bit of everything. And now you have Brian Adams to do defense, coach the defense, get the defense set, figure out the right matchups, and figure out the best ways to play the opposing offenses. And Nate Oates, of course, doing the CEO work. And look, yeah, I just defined their roles as pretty rigid, but they're not going to be as rigid as I just defined them. But that's how the positions are going to be kind of split up generally. Of course, everybody's going to kind of cross over into other areas, but I'm excited about it. You've got two now coaches with NBA experience. Ryan Pannone was coaching the Pelicans G League team. Brian Adams spent 2 seasons as the Clippers G League head coach from 2018 to 2022. He joins the Pistons halfway through this year, but he spent a lot of time with Doc Rivers. And you guys can have, I have my own opinions on Doc Rivers. I don't always love him. He's blown a lot of those 3-1 leads, but he won the NBA championship in 2008 with the Boston Celtics. So he's got championship pedigree. He knows what he's doing. He's a very highly thought of and highly respected head coach. And his assistant, longtime assistant, Brian Adams, leaves the professional ranks to come to Tuscaloosa and coach the Alabama defense this coming season. And I think, look, it just fits right in line with everything that Nate Oates wants to do. It fits right in line with, okay, we are putting guys into the NBA at a high rate. Our system is very NBA conducive. I mean, the offense is very easy to see. Oh, three-pointers or layups, three-pointers or dunks. And really, it's the other way around. It's layups and dunks first, and then three-pointers. So the offense was very easy to see. Oh, we're putting guys playing an NBA system and NBA style. And now the defense will follow right along with it, and so I'm very excited. You now have your you now have your 3 assistant coaches all set in stone, and Brian Adams is going to be coming from Detroit to Tuscaloosa to join the coaching staff. Let's get into one last thing as we're celebrating 4th of July, and this is more procedural. You had the annual self-reporting yesterday. Alabama self-reports 11 level 3 violations to the NCAA. And of course, this is fodder, and this is fodder for the opposing fan bases to say, "Oh, look at these cheaters! Look at these cheaters!" But you read through these violations, and it's just a bunch of hooey. It's not hooey because you did break the rules, but these rules are listed as level 3 violations, which are considered minor violations, and the violations include nothing from football and nothing from basketball. Yeah, nothing from basketball. So the major sports, football and basketball, avoided all violations, and we'll just read them out to you just so you can know how silly they actually were. Men's swimming in April, coach had impermissible electronic contact with a student athlete who had not initiated a notification of transfer. Boom, shame, shame. Baseball, July 5th, PSA made an official visit to campus prior to being added to the institutional request list with the NCAA Eligibility Center. So same sort of thing. The guy hadn't filled out all his proper paperwork, but he came on an official visit. Shame, shame, baseball. Gymnastics, the coaching staff had contact with a recruit prior to the permissible date in August of last year. Oh, shame, shame on you, gymnastics. You're the worst. Women's basketball in November, a women's basketball program added impermissible decorative items to the hotel room of a recruit on an official visit. Oh, shame, shame. There was extra decoration in the hotel room. Men's golf, a non-athletic staff member, attended 2 separate meals in which a prospective student athlete was present. Oh no, terrible. Rowing, assistant women's rowing coach worked at a non-institutional privately owned camp that did not meet the requirements of an institutional camp. Oh, shame on you, rowing. Once again, women's basketball. This is number 2 for women's basketball. A student athlete and team hosted an official visit during a 7-day discretionary period following a championship segment. I don't quite know what it means following a championship segment, but hosting an official visit when it wasn't quite time. Shame on you, women's basketball. Women's swimming and diving in May of this year, women's swimming and diving head coach and assistant coach visited a transfer prospective student athlete and mistakenly paid for that student athlete's meal valued at $32. Oh no, you bought a prospective student athlete's dinner. Okay, men's swimming and diving in May, 2 days later, oh no, back to back, the men's and women's swimming and diving program conducted their end of the year team banquet on a day that was designated to be a required off day during the non-championship segment. Oh, they had a dinner. They had a banquet, an end of the year banquet outside of the wrong dates. Okay, and last one. Women's soccer, June of this year. Assistant women's soccer coach mistakenly sent an email to a prospective student athlete prior to the first permissible date. Shame, shame on you, women's soccer. So lots of little minor things in yesterday's self-reporting. And of course, they should blow up the Alabama athletics program because of all that. No, no, no. I'm teasing. I'm obviously teasing, and I hope that you can sense the sarcasm in that. As you have to self-report, and you have to keep everybody, in the black. You can't. Nobody lives in the gray. It's black or white, and these rules were broken. But they obviously have small punitive punishments for these programs. Yeah, I think you're giving up a day of practice on some of these, and I know that for the dinner, you're having to pay back the dinner, this, that, and the other. The athletes having to pay back the dinner. So small punitive punishments for Alabama, but nothing major. And obviously, football and basketball, men's basketball, avoiding any sort of minor violations. We're going to get out of here for the day, but I really appreciate everybody who's watched us today on 4th of July. I hope you guys are enjoying your family on 4th of July, enjoying your friends on 4th of July. Go get yourself a hot dog or a burger if you are a non-meat eater, and I hope you do the best you can today. Get yourself some corn on the cob. Enjoy the fireworks tonight safely from wherever you are. I know I will be walking from where I am in Northport, downtown Northport. I'll be walking about a mile so I can see the fireworks display at the Tuscaloosa Amphitheater. We'll be back tomorrow, either with Chris Walsh to talk about his Saban's 250, or with Will Miller to catch up with him about the weekend and what lies ahead for Alabama. But we will be back tomorrow for another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I want to thank everybody for watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Go subscribe to the BamaCentral YouTube channel. It's going to be a great place, a great resource to kind of take part in SEC Media Days. It's going to be coming up very, very soon. Myself and Will Miller will be out in Dallas. You can always subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We'd appreciate you liking, subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show, sending it to a friend as we're getting set for the fall. What are we, 56 days away from Alabama football kicking off against Western Kentucky, and it'll be here before you know it. We'll be back tomorrow for another edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.